Mr. Marco Kamani, the moderator of this session, will start the session now with the panelists on stage.
Okay, so now after the coffee break, we expect thousands of questions coming from you. I'm sure your brain is burning. So let's see if we want to break the ice and ask the first question to the panelists. Gentleman over there, please. Do you have a mic? Otherwise, we...
Thank you very much for a very elaborated session on this 4P concept and experience of different countries. For me, I think it is a very delicate matter and should be very thoroughly elaborated and discussed before taking this agenda to the field and to the community. Because if it is not thoroughly articulated in the form of MOU, it can create adverse effects as well. For example, because the private sector, we all know, it is the profit earning entity and it will never compromise on its profit. If an MOU is signed between the farmer, the producer, and unfortunately, such a situation arises that the corporate sector says that, okay, though I have invested with the farmers, but I am not in the position to buy the produce due to so many reasons. So the effort, the input cost employed by the farmer, he may be in danger. Similarly, the 4P concept is a very unique and very good indeed, but the role of public sector should be clearly defined and it should be given a legal status as well. As far as NADIP is here, okay, we can give guarantee that all the MOU signed between the farmer, the producer, and the private sector will be intact. But after the project period, if there is no law, maybe, God forbid, the private sector can, you can say, exploit the farmers. So in that context, what you people are thinking about it?
So your question is about sustainability.
Yeah.
Very good question, thank you. Who wants to start from the panel? It's a very good question.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with the gentleman's last comment that for peace is a delicate matter. You need to be very careful in terms of how do you start it all and at the end of the day formalize it. You brought up a very key element, and I'll start by saying that for a 4P model to work, it all starts back. Most of what we've been talking here probably is a result of what has been happening in the background. It is very important that first, when you are starting, to make sure that you are matching the partners who are really able to match in that business, because it all starts there. Once you have the wrong people, it is not going to work. I'll just give an example of our case where we have the three parties, the consortium model, where we have the development partners, including government, and you have the partners within the consortium and others. This could be institutions who are of some interest in that area. When you have this model, in order to ensure that it is going to work, first, it should be the parties who are in that business. Because the problem that we have seen elsewhere happening, and especially it's very easy the line is very thin in terms of attracting parties through the proposal before working properly. On the background side, you have chances of having people who are not really into it. So I would say that in terms of sustainability, you are right. It is very, very important, and sustainability shouldn't come at the end. It should be at the beginning first, by ensuring that the sector that we are going to support, it really has those issues. And these issues mostly supposed to be market issue. Is it access to finance? Is it access to market? But the difference here, I would like to stress, the difference here, we are talking of profitability. A consortium model will fail in the first place, even before it starts, if the question of profitability is not addressed well. I keep stressing this point that even without us talking about consortia, talking about 4Ps, you should remember that these people are in business. The so-called smallholder farmers, they are there, they are producing. It has not started with the project. They are there, they are producing. What is the difference? The difference is the unit margin. The difference is the unit sales. If the project, if the 4Ps is able to demonstrate and bringing in a difference in those two key areas, the unit sales, that now farmers are able to sell more, that now input supplier are able to sell more, that now financial institution is able to access a smaller producer and sell their product at a premium which is acceptable, that is when the 4P model will stand on its own. And you don't need too much effort. You don't need subsidies. You don't need these issues of subsidies. You might need them, but you need to be very careful because they could be misleading when you start off a line of credit from the government. We want a situation whereby the private sector on their own, they will take care and go on. The problem is it has not been happening because they've not had a proper forum. And the proper forum is a consortium maybe, or a forum where these parties are coming together to trade. And it should be very clear from the beginning that I have a case. When you talk of sustainability, do you have a case as a member of a consortium or a 4P? Do you have a business case? That this business case, if I see it, just to give you an example of Rafael Group, how we attracted the Rafael Group, because we did a background work, and that background work included working out Rafael Group is using middlemen. How much does it cost him to use middlemen? So we did work those numbers, and we said, okay, fine. Here we have our warehouse facilities, we have farmers, 6,000 farmers. If we link these 6,000 farmers to Rafael, what are the opportunities? And we did the mathematics. Rafael is going to save around 25% of the income that is going to the middlemen. That's what attracted Rafael to go into the consortium. So likewise for different parties, even the financial institution. And one thing before I return the mic is, right from the beginning, it should be very clear from the smallholder farmers through the organization or individual that this is not some kind of a help. That this is not some kind of, you are here within the 4Ps and these people are going, no. We are making it right from the beginning that the off-taker, the buyer, is not here to help farmer. Is here to do business with farmer, not help, because that is where the misconception starts. Now you start thinking of a grant, of you need to look at us, we are weak people. Like I said earlier, that our program is working with the active poor. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to ask each one to respond, otherwise it becomes very heavy. So anybody else want to, please?
I'll do. So I have mentioned our accent on training and education part. So, for instance, to ensure the sustainability and to ensure that farmers benefit, we try to tell farmers and about bargaining powers they may have. So this can be bargaining power in cooperation for the group of farmers, or this can be bargaining power for private farmer or peasant in differentiation, to produce something but differently so it is attractive for the market. So this is just to demonstrate them, and we demonstrate it on our demonstration plots, how they can produce different products and get better prices for it, just capture premium for this.
Thank you. Anybody else want to?
Yeah, can I add a little? From my point of view, sustainability can be worked out in such a way, like public producer, for, I agree with Katie, for providing the knowledge of how effectively use your resources as a land, for example. And the other way is, for sustainability, is public-private, if it's about the funding. Because one of the most important criteria is funding the 60% co-funding, which businesses, I mean, privates can afford, and producers frequently can't. So I see sustainability in this way. Because private and producers are always cooperating, so this is like a long-run relationship, and it always exists without any intervention from the public way.
I think there was another dimension of the question which I think is important to highlight, which is the role of policy, the role of the government in sort of ensuring an enforcement of the contracts. Because one thing is to set up a partnership, one thing is to monitor the partnership during the life of the project, but when the project finishes, who is actually looking after this partnership? Who is actually ensuring that the parties are delivering against the commitments, against the contract they signed? This is a very critical point. So I think that's why we talk about scaling up in our agenda also. We talk about using the project as a laboratory for an innovation that can be then mainstream, in what the government is doing through the programs, through the policies that are adopted. So I think it's important to recognize that there is a role to pilot this, make it work, but then there is a role to make this sustainable in the long term. Because one of the fundamental difference of the 4P compared with the normal partnerships is that you are really giving the producers an equal role in the partnership. You're giving them, you're putting them at the same table, right? And we want to make sure this continues. We want to make sure the companies, you were referring to the point that who is actually ensuring that then they are not going to exploit them again? The big point is about empowerment, so bargaining, learn how to negotiate with the private sector, acquire the capacity to negotiate, the capacity to produce, actually to diversify the marketing channels. I can also look for another buyer. If the buyer is actually cheating me, I will look for another buyer. I have this capacity. I've acquired through the project, right? But at the same time, educating the companies in the sense that they will see the benefit, like Marina was saying, of stabilizing the supply chain, on having a reliable supply of products, of quality products. So somehow there is an interest also from the company to have this kind of long-term commitment. And why we were emphasizing before in the panel the issue about selecting, because clearly we have to select the right people. We need to select the right private sector partners and the right producers, because we want them to have this mentality that they look for long-term stability as opposed to short-term gains. If you look only for short-term gains, so opportunistic behavior, I go for the highest price at all costs, it will be very difficult to have partnerships, because every time we'll breach the contract and we look for the best price. But if you recognize there is a value having a stable relationship, then there is an opportunity to create partnerships. So there is a lot of awareness building behind, but there is also a monitoring role to be played afterwards to make sure everybody is is delivering against the commitment. I saw many hands before. Then you have a chance. Please, the gentleman there.
Yeah, I'm Shahzad Zadran, coming from Afghanistan. In the 4P models, I think the main partner is farmers.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I mean, in the 4P model, the main partner is farmer. So could you, anyone from your panel can share us their experience how to protect farmers? Because they will lose on the different way. For example, they pay government taxes, and also sometimes they give like the interest rate. So, and sometimes they are affected by the natural disasters. So is there any mechanism in your countries how to protect the farmers, to make them able, make enough benefits, and to be encouraged to continue the business? So any experience in your country?
Thank you. I think I agree with you. The target group here is the smallholder farmers. And because they are smallholder farmers, most of them are illiterate. Most of them, they don't have the capacity in terms of capital. They don't have the technical know-how. They are not even exposed. In most cases, where there's a partnership, there's a tendency they might be easily overcome. And I want to believe we need to capacitate the farmers. We need to make sure that they are in a position to actually, bargain. My colleague was saying that we should not actually push for subsidy. But if somebody is already a small farmer, he doesn't have that capacity to match up with the big farmers. And so we need to encourage them by giving them, subsidized loans. And through that, they'll be able to inculcate the culture of recovery. Because the financial institutions, they too are interested to make sure that whatever loans they give out, they are in a position to recover. And once they recover, they can continue. So I think we need to actually improve upon the capacity of the smallholder farmers. Even if we have the money, but if they are not capacitated in terms of technical know-how, technology, trying to know the input-output costs, the profitability of the enterprise, then it becomes a challenge.
Anybody else?
Thực sự mà nói, chúng tôi đánh giá rất là cao cái quá trình lựa chọn nông dân. Vì cái việc lựa chọn nông dân thì nó chiếm một cái vai trò quan trọng và nó quyết định được cái sự thành công của 4P. Thực ra làm việc với doanh nghiệp thì dễ, nhưng làm việc với nông dân thì rất là khó. Mà đặc biệt nông dân thuộc đối tượng của các cái dự án IPS thì thông thường là những cái người nghèo, người rất là thiếu về kiến thức, rồi thiếu về các cái điều kiện để sản xuất. Cho nên là phải rất là thận trọng khi mà lựa chọn cái đối tượng này. Nếu chúng ta lựa chọn nông dân mà không đúng thì sẽ dẫn đến những cái cam kết, phá bỏ những cái cam kết với doanh nghiệp. Và doanh nghiệp người ta một lần nếu mà đã mất cái lòng tin thì rất là khó để huy động người ta tham gia vào các cái chuỗi liên kết 4P. Vì vậy trong khuôn khổ dự án của chúng tôi thì cái việc lựa chọn nông dân tham gia vào chuỗi giá trị thì chúng tôi đưa ra các cái bước rất là cụ thể. Nếu mà chi tiết ra thì độ khoảng 10 bước, nhưng mà nếu tóm tắt vào những cái bước chính thì có thể là tóm gọn trong cái 5 bước và có một cái quy trình rất là rõ ràng với các cái tiêu chí để lựa chọn nông dân. Thì cái thứ nhất là khi mà lựa chọn nông dân tham gia chuỗi thì chúng tôi sẽ cùng với doanh nghiệp khảo sát cái địa bàn đó và tham gia họp dân để đưa ra những cái tiêu chí của doanh nghiệp cũng như là tiêu chí của dự án để các cái người nông dân người ta đăng ký tham gia vào. Trên cơ sở đó thì thành lập các cái tổ nhóm và sau đó thì chúng tôi tổ chức những cái khóa tập huấn để hướng dẫn cho họ cái cách lập các cái phương án sản xuất kinh doanh, đưa ra những cái đề xuất để có thể tham gia vào 4P. Đấy, và sau khi lựa chọn đánh giá những cái đề xuất đó xong, những cái nhóm nông dân nào đạt các cái tiêu chí của dự án và doanh nghiệp thì mới được dự án tài trợ và được chúng tôi và doanh nghiệp là hỗ trợ triển khai thực hiện cái liên kết 4P.
We find that in our project, we take more concern in the selection of farmers in the 4P partnership because this is one of the important things to decide the success of the partnership. Because it is easier to work with the private sector, but it is quite difficult to work with the poor farmer because they are the poor and they lack of the knowledge, the capacity to produce, and so it easily that they refuse to commit to work with the producer, to work with the private sector. So in our project, we have a different step to identify, to select the farmers in the partnership, but basically we have some steps like this. First, the PMU, that the project will accompany, and the enterprise will take the initial surveys to the area, and then we identify some criteria for selection, and we have a meeting with the farmers, and the one who find that they are able to participate in the linking, they will register, and we establish the farmer association, and we provide them the training how to formulate the production and the business plans, and they make by themselves, and we then submit to the PMU and the enterprise, and we will review and then assess and then approve for the business plans.
Thank you. You brought up a very good point, and I wish to share from our experience, because where do you position a farmer? Do you position him in the business as a weak entity so that you need protection? I think that has been the practice, and at the end of the day, it has been detrimental to the smallholder producer. So what we did with our 4P and the consortium model, in that table platform, a farmer, however weak he is an equal partner in the trading. And by the way, if farmers are not producing, where are these financial institutions in terms of agriculture? Where are they going to support? Or even input supplier? Whom are they going to sell to? So the farmer, I understand there's an issue to do with the mindset and the framework. So as a project, we are trying to address at the same time the mindset and the framework. And the framework, we are talking of the consortia. The consortia position the farmer on equal terms with the buyer, with the input supplier, because without the farmers, you don't have the input suppliers. So it works that way. And from a private-public partnership, or sort of, I also want to throw a question. Where do you place the smallholder producer? Maybe it's something to think of, because we have been having discussion in some areas, very tough discussion. Where do you place a smallholder producer? Is he a private sector or a private sector or a public sector? In our case, we have had so many problems. People are talking as if farmers, they are a public sector. So they need to be done this, you need to do this for farmers, you need to protect, you need to do this for farmers. I would suggest that we have a proper framework for smallholder farmers to work. And when they have, it does work. I will give an example of AMCOs. AMCOs, they are putting the farmer's agenda in equal terms with the buyer, because they have volume, they can sell their volume, they can maintain the quality, and the buyer or off-taker is able to sit with the farmer, because without the volume that the farmer has, they have nothing to do. They have circles. So going forward, I would encourage that other organizations, institutional countries, to ensure that farmers have strong organization. It's true. Farmer is the weakest link. Why? Because they don't have a strong organization. And we cannot go on working with the individual farmers, expecting that someday they will become an individual peasant, expecting someday they will become farmers. It is better that we have an institution, we assist them to have a strong institution that will present their agendas in the market. Thank you.
Can I expand? I agree with Leonard. There is simply lack of lobby groups, simply because farmers simply don't know that this kind of practice exists, that they can cooperate between each other and say that these kind of problems we have, and protect this, their point of view. And in this point, the public sector can intervene and share with them a knowledge that lobbying exists.
Okay, maybe if I got it right, there was also a reference in the question on the natural disaster, if I understood well. So I think, you know, when you say they are weak, farmers are not only weak because they have less bargaining power, less information about markets, less capacity perhaps to produce, but also because they are certainly the most vulnerable party involved in a partnership, and exposed to what can be the risk of a market, but also the risk of natural hazards. So I think recognizing this does not mean that we have to go with a paternalistic approach, go back to the old-fashioned approach, but recognizing the risk is a fundamental point about setting a partnership. Being aware what are the risks involved, and thinking about mitigating measures. So for example, one important point is that the contracts between the parties recognize the risk involved. And there is a mechanism to share the risk somehow. And because what we have observed in some cases that the risks are too much on the shoulders of the farmers. So this can be really a problem in case something goes wrong. Hopefully it's not, but for example, I'll give you an example. I was when I was country program manager for Dominican Republic, we were promoting partnership between organizational farmers, exporting, selling actually coffee and bananas for export. And all of a sudden there was a hurricane hitting the island, and basically they lost the whole production. So from one day to the other, they were with zero production, zero income. So these are facts, these things are happening. So I think it's our mandate to think about this in advance, not just reacting ex post. So, for example, there are mechanisms to address national disasters, which are not actually part of our typical IFA projects, but they are in other, for example, the World Bank has a world program in the Caribbean for disaster management. So they have special funds made available to countries to react to these kind of situations. When the risk is systemic, then there is no insurance you can use. I mean, this is like something which is destroying the whole production in a particular region. So there are different mechanisms. What I want to say is that your point was very valid, not only to highlight maybe the weakness that the farmers are facing in engaging with the other partners, but also the additional constraints or risks they face because of their position, which is much more vulnerable than the position of, for example, of a company.
And I want to add something. So there are the risks which even insurance companies are not covering. And actually, in some cases, this problem creates opportunity for another private sector representative like insurance companies to come into partnership and cooperation. But on the other side, the minor intervention we can provide is also to promote the climate smart agriculture. So not to create some risks to which each farmer may be unwillingly and unknowingly contributing. So again, we go back to education and to give the right information to our clientele, which are small farmers for IFAD.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I see the gentleman from Cambodia.
Thank you so much. This is very interesting discussion. I have one question in regarding to the relationship between the private sector and the farmer. We talk a lot about sustainability. During the implementation, we learned that there is a lot of issues that we need to address. In terms of trust between the farmer and the buyer. This is because not only come from the farmer side, but also from the business side as well. It takes a lot of time to deal with that, and it is very complex issue. I don't know whether you have experience in order to make this or resolve this problem. This is one. Two, we normally talk about merit between the farmer and the buyer, the private sector. But actually, I think we should also talking about competition as well. But when we have a competition, it's always good for the farmer. So once we are plugged into one system, I don't know how the farmer will get out if they have opportunity doing something better. Thank you so much.
Anyone you want to?
Actually, I want to bring very figurative example. In case of Marina, so she is running bay leaf processing factory, right? So these are for spices they used to produce it for some. So these are the leaves of a tree which are dried and which are sold to for different applications, right? At the moment, Georgian farmers are producing massively pretty low quality bay leaves because they don't know that good quality has value, one. They don't know how to improve the quality, two. We are tackling this by providing training, by providing information, and by linking with the producer who is looking for that particular quality. So after we're putting the demonstration plot where we demonstrate how you should care about the tree, the plant, and at the end, when you have the product which is applicable for packers and not for ingredient users, they can get the premium price. So in other example, we have now leaves with black spots, which cost very cheap. But when they will improve their practices, post-harvest handling on top of it, they will have green, nice leaves without spots for which market is paying more, and for which Marina and type likewise her producers are struggling for, are interested to, because market is out there. So this will benefit as Marina, the farmers as well. So just for figuration.
Actually, building a trust between producers and private sector takes time, and it's only through the trial and error method. But like few times making errors, and afterwards it's like a huge long-run cooperation. I'm cooperating with some farmers for decades, really.
I would like to now to take a few more questions from the floor. I know there are people eager to ask questions. The lady there, then more people.
Okay, thank you. As we discussed about the producers, so the farmers actually, so the women among the farmers, how in your countries you have mainstreamed gender in 4P model, because the women, they have less asset base and they have no access to resources as compared to men. Should we be doing some positive discrimination by taking affirmative action, or what should be the strategy for the women? As in our country, in Pakistan, the women, they are interested to be in the private sector as well, although they are the producers. But again, these issues are there, the financial and all. I think the strategy should not be the same for men and women farmers or the private sector.
Thank you. Other questions, please?
Okay, good afternoon. I have been raising my hand, so finally I got a chance, although I'm a big in size. So to introduce myself, so my name is Kil Tenzin. So we have 4 of my friends. So I'm from Bhutan. So one of our panelists, she was saying that Georgia, the country is very small, but compared to Georgia, our country is very small. We are having a population of around 7 lakhs, so very, very small, but our country is folded with mountains. So if you can expand like a rubber, then I think it may become a very big. So now, as for the panelists, we have been hearing about since the morning, we have been hearing about the public-private producer partnership, 4PS, which is one of a very imperative model that has been adopted by most of the IFAD projects. And it has been successful in Sri Lanka, so we are really appreciate and acknowledge for that. And now, even for our Bhutan also, we have been recently introduced with one of the public-private partnership policy to interlink these 4Ps models. So this is just my submissions to the panelists that I think since funded by the IFAD, even in Bhutan also we have the project Kalip, which is purely based on the value chain analysis. So by looking at the success of some of the value chain projects funded by the IFAD, I think it is very important that I think IFAD should come up with one of the general policy to adopt the public-private producer partnership. Although I think the rules may differ from country to country, but from overall perspective, I think some are raising the questions from the governments, from public point of view, and some are raising the questions from the consumer protection point of view. And I think if we can come up with one overall or a general framework, I think that sounds more logical for every country to implement this PPP model to achieve and to social economic development especially for the rural people. So thank you, just my submission.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask some clarifications from the panelists. Different perspective. I'm from PFI. Really, now I want to really share or ask from your experience Now, when you take all this P4, still under these 4 Ps, PFI is not there. I think that is going to come recently. And we are already in Sri Lanka. I'm Ajit Alhakon from Sri Lanka. And then when you come to the finally, we said that the farmer is the poorest in this P4, and also he is taking so much of risk, and at the end of the day, your national disaster or something. Now, when we are implementing this program, even credit rating, we have just ignored. Some farmers are in bad shape, but we still financed. But when you come to this PFI side, now all the risks are mitigated, but still the risk is there, mitigated. Now, end of the day, that if farmer happen to be defaulter for the bank, and end of the day, the bank is losing. The farmers are in the grassroots level, and then poor people, and then even though we are kept aside the real risk aside and granted facilities, and then end of the day, even as a senior official in a bank, we are in a difficult situation to go for as a mass for this financing. We have taken few cases, but to promote this, this end of the day, even from the insurance, especially agriculture sector, the insurance policy is to compensate losses. If the farmer happen to face for a disaster or something in the early stages of his crop, then he is going to get only for up to that. Then sometimes the finances what we have given is not covered fully. Sometimes maybe loan may covered, but still farmer is at a risk. Therefore, end of the day, the losing part, end of the day, PFI has to take. How in your countries, whether any kind of a mechanism to cover up that under this program, even in this consortium, that have you got together and address this problem to end of the day in second session, if something goes wrong, the banks are that now initially we have ignored that. But next session to grant again a loan, we have a risk there. How you all are mitigating that part,
Right.
how you address that part.
Okay, thank you. Rasha, please.
Thank you very much, and really sincere thanks to the panel for excellent interventions and recommendations. I just have one simple question, I guess, for you all, is how do you help in the negotiation of the price of the produce that the farmers will be supplying to the private sector? What does the price negotiation process looks like, and what are the reference points for it? Thank you.
Okay. It was
She's been waiting.
Thank you. Actually, it struck me that Leonardo several times mentioned that they are working solely with farmer-based organizations, AMCOS and SACOS, right? And those exist already. And in the case of Vietnam, my understanding is they are organizing farmers. They identify them and organize them. And this seems to be two different approaches, let's say. And I know a bit the SACOS and the AMCOS in the case of Tanzania. But in Vietnam, I would be interested to understand how do you ensure the sustainability of these institutions that you create within a project or interventions that has a timeline. So this is my first question. And maybe the second question to all is, did you, in your different experience, come across elite capture? And if so, how did you address it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more, please.
My question was related to her. It's about the negotiation. It is an agreement between the parties. So what if one of the party, the producer or the private sector, breach the agreement? And are there any penalties on side of farmer or the private sector, or how you deal with these issues?
Thank you.
I'm going to collect the money now. So we say $50. Huh?
Thank you. Shamsur Rahman, Siddiqui from Afghanistan. And thank you all for sharing the experience of your country. So my question is regarding the farmer side. That's a very important part of the 4PP model. So have you faced the problems during the first stage of the farmers? Because that we have the experience of, even though we are supporting the farmers, but as an extension concept that seeing is believing is very important for the farmers. So have you been faced the problems during the first stage to the farmers that to make them involved in this partnerships? So have you been faced any problems? And the second question is that one part of PURP is contract farming. So in case if the farmers could not provide the products that we have been in contact with them, so in case, what are the alternatives for this problem? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have quite enough ammunition here to for probably a couple hours discussion. Thanks a lot. Okay, so I just summarized the question because there were many. So one was about gender and how we basically mainstream gender in a partnership, how if we need any affirmative action to ensure women inclusion. Then there was one about that was basically a recommendation for IFA to come up with some guidelines to basically give reference to country, a bit more support to countries to implement the 4P approach. As I said, we have something produced recently, but we can expand. And actually, one of the purposes of having this event is actually capitalize on the rich experience that is coming from different countries that we need to certainly then distill and include in our knowledge products. Then there was another one about the negotiation process and the issue of price. Another one about the creation of farmer organization in Vietnam, if you can clarify this point, and the risk, the sustainability of this organization created by the project, the risk of lead capture, which can be associated with the issue of targeting, so mistargeting, few people benefiting from the partnership and not the totality of the farmers, for example. What happens if somebody breaches the agreement? So in case of one of the party not fulfilling, not honoring the contract, and which is related to the final point about, from the gentleman about what happens if a farmer is unable to deliver the product, which can be a way to breach a contract, but sometimes for force majeure reasons, but it still is an issue. And then the final point was about the process of engaging the farmers in the partnership. What kind of challenges did we face in doing that? So it's a quite diverse set of questions. Thank you for that. Sorry, you are right. And then there was a point about risk mitigation for financial institutions and this idea of having a mechanism to cover the loss in case of losses. Thank you very much. So I look around. We want to start.
Ở đây thì liên quan đến một số câu hỏi của các quý vị thì tôi xin trả những cái người trưởng nhóm, những cái người lãnh đạo nhóm phải có uy tín, phải có năng lực để lãnh đạo nhóm, và đặc biệt là phải có cái khả năng để đàm phán thương thuyết với doanh nghiệp trong cái quá trình mua bán. Và khi mà họ nhận thấy được cái lợi ích thực sự khi tham gia tổ nhóm thì những cái tổ đó mới thực sự là bền vững và mang lại lợi ích cho các cái thành viên.
The second question relating to the farmers organization. The organization of the Farmers Association is one of the policy initiative by Vietnamese government, and it is so suitable for the market development in the Vietnam society, and it is also suitable for the project because in the framework of project, the farmers organization is strong, have enough capacity to link with the private companies, because the private company need large supplies of commodities, and so if they produce at the small scale, like the household scale, they cannot produce enough commodity to enough material, the raw material to supply to the private company. Our project provides the funds to help to organize some meeting and help them to meet with the enterprise to understand the benefits of participation in this organization. And then they will participate in the voluntary base. Okay. And after the organization is established, they will have the leader. And the leader, they should be strong enough and have enough capacity to manage the operation of the organization, and able to negotiate and to work to link with the private sector in the 4P sub-projects.
Và họ khi mà tham gia vào tổ nhóm thì họ cùng mua chung đầu vào bán chung sản phẩm. Cho nên là tiết kiệm được rất là nhiều cái chi phí đầu vào, và có thể là bán được sản phẩm với cái giá cao. Khi những cái lợi ích mà khi tham gia tổ nhóm họ nhận được thì họ
One of the benefits of the farmers organization is that the member, they can buy the raw material, buy the material together with the lower price, and they can sell the product together, so they can save the cost. And when they see the benefit, they can agree to participate in the groups.
Other questions? Who want to respond to the question of the financial sector risk, the loss, potential loss, mechanism to cover the losses? Who has experience or want to respond on this? Leonard?
Thank you. Let me share the experience that we have with the one consortia, which is in dealing with the maize. Any serious financial institution would not get into contract where they see there is a chances of losing their money, because this is of the other people's money that have been deposited in the bank. So that consortium is working with one Akiba commercial bank. Last season, this is 16-15 season, it got into contract with the farmers of giving loans of up to 2.1 billion Tanzania shillings, but farmers were only able to take advantage of 1.97 billion Tanzania shillings. There were mechanisms to ensure that, because they know they are working with the farmers, there are chances that two major things could go wrong: crop failure and a farmer who has taken a loan dying. So there was a provision in that contract and in the loan agreement, partly, because that is an opportunity, that is really a business opportunity, partly of what the farmers were paying in terms of a premium was to cover for the loan, insurance, and the life insurance. One farmer died, in fact, and the loan was paid in full by the insurance company. So you see in this case there is a financial institution, but there are two other companies that have come in to provide the insurance cover, and another company provide the life insurance to the farmers who are taking the loan. So in our take, and I would encourage that if a financial institution they are to get into such kind of contract, they should be able to cover themselves that should anything happen. And we know there are chances that there's a crop failure because almost 80 to 90% of the farmers that we are working with are based on rain-fed kind of agriculture. So there are chances of maybe the rain is not there, but there's a small problem with the insurance companies, which they need a track record. They needed some track record. If they are able to get a track record of the previous 2 seasons or 3 seasons, they get into contract. And this now has become a very good business in Tanzania.
Okay. Who wants to respond to the question about the negotiation of the price? And who is helping in the process?
I will briefly respond to this question. As for negotiating the prices between private and producers, well, it's simple. Market always regulates prices. There is even a term of invisible hand. At the end of the day, everyone wants to enter the long-run relationship. I face every day that there is a player that can enter the market and boost up prices. But mostly, given my experience, it's like short-run player. But if he will enter in the long run, then I will adjust prices given to that.
Thank you. A small addition to that one, in case of the pricing, our experience is when in the contract, we have 2 kinds of contract, and there's a provision. One is talking up a minimum price, which is production cost plus makeup. And this makeup, you have different AMCOs that are participating in a consortium, maybe 2 or 3. They have different markup to the price. But the contract is very clear that the selling price would be the market price. Should anything happen to make the price low, the buyer would pay the production cost plus the markup that is agreed at that time. So they're not going to get anything lower than that. So you were asking in terms what is the reference point. In the case of the farmers' organizations that are participating in the consortium, they know their margins. That is the basic thing that they know. The cost of production of 1 kilogram of paddy is this much. We are not going to sell lower than this much plus our markup. So that one they know. And when they get into contract, and we've encouraged them, in fact, the program and other parties are staying aside. They are not party to the contract. We, as a project, we facilitate understanding initially on the part of the smallholder producer to understand this is an instrument, it's a very important instrument, you need to have it. And I don't remember mentioning it earlier, but the way the project works, within 3 years in a consortia, the support is like 100%, 50%, and the year 3 is 0%. So it is on their own.
Okay.
Yeah. In our own case, the reference point was the world market price. And since we are dealing with organic and certified, then you can have additional top-up, above that one. And within the private sector, we also had competition, supply and demand. And so where the other private sector believes that you can increase the price above the market, above the world market price, then definitely the producers will go in for such a private sector. On the issue of the elite capture, I think we had, right from the MOA, we had a criteria that we want to target the smallholder farmers having between 1 hectare to 5 hectares. And that's the average holding for the smallholder farmers. So it's very much difficult for the big farmers to, capture the bulk of the contract. Emphasis is more on gender. As you can see, even on the panel now, I think we have more of women than men. And similarly, out in the field also, a lot more effort is geared towards encouraging women to take over, to contribute to the household. We are coming up with programs on girls, gender action learning systems, so that they will have clear-cut responsibilities between the male and the female, the men and women, and we should do it in a very transparent manner, so that at the end of the day, whatever proceeds they receive from their work, I mean they can now decide how they can share that one.
Okay, there was a question about what happens if somebody breaches the agreement, and there was a question about the gentleman also about what happens if a farmer is unable to deliver the product. So we want to respond to this question. Vietnam?
Liên quan đến cái việc cam kết không cao giữa các cái đối tác tham gia 4P thì nó có thể là xảy ra từ cả hai phía. Có thể là xảy ra phá vỡ hợp đồng từ phía doanh nghiệp, và cũng có thể là có những trường hợp là phá vỡ hợp đồng từ phía người nông dân. Thì thực sự mà nói thì trong quá trình thực hiện dự án của chúng tôi cũng đã gặp phải cả hai cái trường hợp như thế này. Tuy nhiên khi mà hợp đồng giữa hai bên bị phá vỡ thì trước hết chúng ta cần phải xem xét cái nguyên nhân nào dẫn đến cái việc phá vỡ đó. Thì thực sự mà nói cũng có những cái nguyên nhân là khách quan, nhưng cũng có những cái nguyên nhân chủ quan. Nếu thực sự là nguyên nhân khách quan thì chúng ta cũng phải cùng với các bên để tháo gỡ những cái khó khăn để cái quá trình hợp tác 4P nó được thông suốt. Còn nếu mà cái nguyên nhân đó nó xuất phát từ chủ quan thì rõ ràng mình phải nâng cao năng lực và có những cái vận động thuyết phục đối với cái đối tượng mà là tác nhân gây ra việc phá vỡ cam kết hợp đồng. Và chúng tôi sợ rằng là không đủ thời gian để đưa ra cái ví dụ cụ thể, nhưng mà nếu mà chủ tọa cho phép thì chúng tôi cũng sẽ có những cái ví dụ để đưa ra cho các quý vị cùng tham khảo.
I would like to answer the question relating to the breach of agreement. The breach of agreement may come from the enterprise or come from the farmers. In order to address the issue is first to identify the cause. What led to the breach of the agreement is maybe objective, unexpected factors, or it is from the farmers or from the enterprise. If it is unexpected factor, it is better that all the parties sit together to find out the cause and then how to deal with the difficulties. So in order to continue the activities in the 4P model, and if not, it's relating to it is from the side of the enterprise or the farmers, it is better to give training. We have a capacity building to provide them with the knowledge and with the information and try to mobilize them to continue to engage in the 4P models. And because the time is quite limited, so I'm afraid I cannot give the exact example of the breach. There's some cases relating to the breach of agreement. But if so if you want to get more understanding or know more about the example, you can meet me directly, and I will give the example for you.
And I will just shortly elaborate in terms of women involvement. So at the very level of project design, so when we are selecting the commodities, one of the criteria is that we have in the list of our commodities which we support, we have the commodity which employs women. For instance, bay leaves. For instance, cut flowers. These are two exemplary commodities which we have in the list of our commodities. So from this perspective, from the very, very beginning, we try to put seeds which we will harvest later. And with this consideration, earlier consideration, by this time, for instance, our project already reached more than 50% of its target of women involvement. So this is very advisable to have from the very beginning, which will help later.
Excellent. Any other burning question from the floor, from the audience? Mr. Sun?
Yeah, I have one question, but before I take the learning from you, I have something to offer, a kind of a reflection from the lessons we have in China, but also from hearing the very diverse, insightful ideas about this, the 4P model. I actually have been thinking. The 4P model, I think it's a process. It's a process of stabilizing this 3P triangle. And naturally, the producer angle is always weak. And we talk about sustainability. So I think thinking the 4P process, probably it's a process of ensure the producer participation and their empowerment. Participation in the value chain analysis, in the business plan formation, empowerment in terms of, I mean, this is not just one financing scheme. When it's done, it's done. And it's a business relation, it's a sale-buy business relation, it's done. It's more than that. That's the first step. The process is to participation and empowerment in a way of having them organized. If producers are still, working differently, separately, then they probably doomed to lose with a very powerful private sector. Empowerment in terms of they have the right product with consumers. That's actually the power. Empowerment in terms of they're informed of the market, informed of price. If they are blind, they're doomed to fail. This Elliott captured this equality issue. Also knowing their risks. So this is kind of my reflection. Probably in our 4P, we need to think about the process, how we ensure that the producer P is fully participated and empowered along this process. So we address more or less the questions about sustainability or this. My question that we haven't touched upon, the target group that we work with, they are the kind of left behind people, let's so call it, by the market. Or in a good scenario, they have very strong private sector, big enterprises next to them. We just put a small connection with them. But in most of the cases, they are disadvantaged, located, or they don't have the right product to produce. So they are the disadvantaged group. We don't usually have such a good, favorable situation where the private sector is readily mature next door. So developing this, eventually we're talking about through the business plan, a kind of a business plan. But we haven't touched upon that. When we approve the business plan, I don't know whether we have some good experience to share, because how we can ensure the business plan is good enough. It's really good business plan, because maybe we are working with a very immature company itself is still investment driven. Do we have any good experience in make sure, and who is providing what kind of role in this BP appraisal?
Just 2 words addition what Son has said. Disadvantage means being IFAD and UN specialized agency. There is one of the area while targeting we need to think about indigenous people. How do we, what are the experiences with the panelists in dealing with, yes, as Son rightly indicated that the most vulnerable groups are those from bottom of the pyramid, and not only from the economic angle, they are from social and ethnic angle also. Are there any experience around that you can share with us with regard to engagement of those poorest section plus the indigenous people?
Okay, I take the privilege and the benefit of being the moderator to respond first to the last question. I just want, no, because it's something I was directly involved, so it's actually a real life. I basically, when I was country program manager for Belize, which is a very small country in Central America, we were working a lot with indigenous Maya descendant people, which are actually account for a large portion of the population of Belize. And one of the most successful projects we promoted was linking these indigenous people farming cocoa with a fair trade company buying from UK, which is called Green and Black. You can go to the website, you will find Green and Black with the cocoa. There is a specific chocolate bar, which I think is orange. It comes with the chocolate from Belize, organic chocolate from Belize, flavored with vanilla. Vanilla farmed in Belize as well. And actually, this is long-lasting relationship. I was CPM in that. Those were from 2001, 2005. Now we're in 2018, and you can still find the chocolate bar there. So it's a very long-lasting partnership. And our role there was really to be the entry point to connect these people, this organizational indigenous people, to this company. The company then took over, and they were supporting the farming organization to improve the quality. They negotiate a fair price. Of course, under the fair trade agreement, they have certain safeguards. But still, it's a quite successful story, and has created completely different dynamic in the southern Belize area where this population was staying. So it's possible. Of course, we have to pay attention to certain things. I mean, for example, in the case of the indigenous people in Belize, credit was an issue. They didn't want to borrow. For them, being in credit, having a debt was a problem. So we had to find other solutions to support them with financial services other than credit. So this comes with the idea of understanding very well the profile of our target group, what are the constraints, and to tailor the intervention to this kind of specific needs, not coming with a blueprint approach. But the approach is possible. I mean, as long as you understand the implications, it's possible to do also with indigenous people. That's my direct experience. So I open up for the other panelists, if you want to respond to this or the other questions were asked by the audience.
Yeah, thank you. I want to respond just briefly on your observation. I think you are right from China. Yes, it's more about processes and everything that is involved in it. Developing a 4P model or a consortium, there's a lot that is going in it. You mentioned issues of building capacity. Yes, true. We are building capacity of different parties. And I just want to cite an example. Before this called organization, farm organization, AMCOs or SACOs, they go through a process whereby the program, even without the project, at the local government level, there is an institution called the Local Government Authority, which has a cooperative unit, which it's their duty day by day to see to it that these cooperative institutions are working. They are regulated, they are being checked and evaluated in terms of their performance. So I agree with you. There is a lot that needs to be done in terms of empowerment, ensuring these people are able, they can compete, they can sit in a round table and discuss issues of importance to the buyer and the other partners of the consortium. You asked a very good question, like who ensures that this business plan is going to work? In our case, we have what we call service provider. Service provider are involved in bringing these different parties, buyer, input supplier together. And when it comes to business planning, this is one of the areas that we deal with in terms of capacity building. And this one is an element that comes in now. In fact, it is preceded by event. It comes in now because you want farmers, you want farm organization to clearly see that there is these differences we call the unit margin. There is a profitability element or there isn't a profitability element. I tell you, with or without a business plan, farmers are doing business. I think we need to appreciate that fact. Farmers are doing business. They have been doing business and they will continue to do business. But there's inefficiencies. So this project, what it's doing is like to address those inefficiencies. It suffices to say that there is no shortcut. The conduct, structure and the performance of farmers' organization must be upgraded so that they can work on equal terms with other partners in the consortium. We all agree that farmers is the weak link. Why? Because the structure, because of how they conduct themselves, and because of the performance. And then unless you address these issues, they will not sit in the same table with the input supplier, with the buyer, with the bank to do business. It's next to impossible. So you have to do that job first so that they can be on the same level. By the way, they are more important, even like I said earlier, the other parties, because they have something to sell, and everybody is looking for them to buy. Financial institution, they want to sell something to the farmers. You see, and this we are talking of organized farmers. So it's very important as we try to link these smallholder producers, they need to be structured. You cannot avoid that and expect a farmer to transform into commercial, because we are transforming these farmers. Otherwise, they are okay when it comes to subsistence. It's fine. They produce for subsistence. I wonder if we have ever sat and think about who is feeding the third world, at least the part I'm coming from. 90% of the food is coming from the farmers. However, they are structured or unstructured. 90% is coming from them. It is through subsistence and what is left out of subsistence that they are selling. So this project is trying to assist them to do it in a more commercial way where they can see the profitability and be in business. And there was a question we were asking among themselves and some of the members. We keep hearing, and some of the members here have just cited that we keep hearing that farmers are the weakest. Like farmers are being cheated. I don't know whether we have ever sat and thought, why are these farmers who are being cheated year after year, they are not going out of business or farming? Where are they getting the funds to refinance the farming activity year after year? Who is giving them that financing? Thank you.
Okay, because we have, I was told by the big brother that we are running out of time, so I will invite our distinguished panelists to perhaps be very much to the point, if they want to say something.
Yeah. I quite agree that the farmers are the weaker partners, but they are also the most basic. Without them, producing, then the need for the private sector will not be there. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we try to help them to improve upon their capacity, to improve upon their knowledge base, so that they will be in a position to move from a small-scale farmer to a large-scale commercial farmer.
Okay. Any comment from the right side of the... No? It's okay? Okay. Okay, so I really would like to thank, first of all, the panelists who have traveled all the way from their countries to come here and share the experience with you. I will give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. I also want to thank you for the patient listening and for the active participation. Thanks a lot. But this is not the end of the story. This is just the start at the beginning of the story. Because as you know, this event has been structured on 3 days. So we are going to actually, and that's a task also I want to give to my colleagues here in the panel. We had to distill a little bit the key points that have emerged from this rich conversation, including the morning, as in the whole day, and perhaps come up with a list of key topics, key questions we want to keep discussing on the third day, after the field trip. And I'm sure also the field trip will be, really, an opportunity to discover other things. So I'm sure we'll have new themes emerging. But certainly I will ask you to perhaps think about the discussion and come up with maybe your suggestion in terms of proposed question for day 3 or proposed themes for day 3. Having said that, I just want to thank you again. It's always a pleasure to be in Sri Lanka. It's my 4th time here, but I really feel like at home. And thanks a lot for the listening, and looking forward to continuous discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marco Kamani. I think it was a very interesting plenary session moderated by Mr. Kamani and also the panelists. We thank all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, before the closing remarks, I have a few house announcements to make to all the foreign delegates. So tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day because it's the field visit. And I'm sure it's going to be a fresh experience to all of you. You can come in your casual attires, and the journey is due to start sharp at 7 a.m. For the foreign delegates who will be staying at the Taj Samudra, there will be 2 buses here. So if you can come down by 6:30 a.m., you can collect your breakfast from the concierge, and the buses will leave sharp at 7 a.m. For the delegates who are staying at the Fairway Hotel and the Galadari Hotel, there will be a bus coming there to pick you all up, and the buses will be on the roads by 7 a.m. Breakfast will be served on the way. For delegates staying at other hotels apart from Fairway Hotel and Galadari Hotel, you could come to Taj Samudra and take the bus starting from the Taj Samudra. So that's a small announcement. And at the end of this session, we have a photo session for all of you all. You can come forward and click some photographs, and it will be shared with you later on. With that, for the closing remarks of this inaugural session, let me invite Mr. Prabhatuyan Wata, Deputy Program Manager of NADEP.
Thank you. Ms. Catherine Megan, IFAD General Counsel, Mr. Hubert Boira, IFAD Country Program Manager, Dr. Yazanta Mapatuna, Program Director NADEP, and other distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor and pride that I am delivering the closing remarks for the day 1 of this International Conference on Innovative Models for Inclusive and Sustainable Agribusiness Development through Public-Private Producer Partnerships, 4Ps, jointly organized by NADEP and IFAD. We all stakeholders from national and international organizations, policymakers, the private sector, NGO, academia, gathered here for a comprehensive discussion on how to understand the evolving environment for 4Ps and support policy interventions that can deliver inclusive and sustainable impact for the rural poor. All of you have made this a possibility by being a stakeholder of this conference in order to meet its objectives in various ways. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to the Secretary to the President, Mr. Austin Fernando, and IFAD General Counsel, Ms. Catherine Megan, for gracing this occasion and overall guidance. Your valuable input and the support for the success of this is greatly appreciated. I would also like to thank 2 keynote speakers, Mr. Hubert Boira, IFAD Country Program Manager, for his excellent presentation on IFAD engagement as a development partner in promoting 4P value chains, and Dr. Jasanta Mapatuna, NADEP Program Director, for enlightening us on 4P value chain model pioneered by NADEP in Sri Lanka. I would like to sincerely thank key partners representing farmer groups, private sector entities, and banking sector led by CBSL, who gave their respective perspective on the NADEP 4P. With the general support from IFAD, NADEP has managed to change the traditional contractual farming system and fragmented value chains into an integrated value chain-based 4P approach by initiating partnerships with private sector business entities. They are the key partners in the NADEP 4P model who work together to enhance beneficiary productivity and better access to market and financial resources. On behalf of the Presidential Secretariat and NADEP, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the 4P value chain practitioners from different countries who shared their expertise and experiences in implementing 4P models with us. I took note with a great interest of your key challenges, best practices, and lessons learned. My gratitude is also extended to all the participants of this event who took the time off your busy schedules to interactively participate at this workshop and contribute towards a constructive and lively discussion to make this conference a great success. I would like to take this opportunity to kind remembrance of Mrs. Deeptika Pereira, former program manager NADEP, and Mr. Rohita Samarasekara, who were sadly dismissed due to tragic train accident in 2015, where they were in duty at the time of NADEP started to expand. Their commitment was immense for the success of NADEP. Last, it is required to planning to make this event success and ensure everything runs smoothly. There was a team behind to ensure this. I would like to thank all the organizers from NADEP, IFAD, and IPS who worked in numerous ways towards the success of this event. Once again, thank you for participating in this event, and I would like to see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yanwatha. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we mark the closure of this program while inviting you to enjoy Sri Lanka, and until we meet again, have a blessed stay and do enjoy. And don't forget the photo shoot. I request all the delegates to come forward for the photo shoot.